If you ask around in the NASCAR community, the answer to the question, what's the worst track, will more often than not be Texas Motor Speedway. It's a well-earned reputation stemming from factors such as the way it got onto the schedule in the first place, the attendance drop-off relative to the size of the grandstands, and most prominently, the racing quality. The on-track action has been iffy at Texas since day one, but its issues were supercharged in 2017 when the track was repaved. The flattening of turns 1 and 2, as well as the PJ1 disaster that ensued while trying to add more lanes, wouldn't have happened without the repave. You might think it was a foolish move to repave the track then, but it was actually pretty necessary. To prove that, we have to rewind to a year before the repave, specifically to June 11th, 2016. The Verizon IndyCar Series is in town for the Firestone 600, their annual trip to Texas. Other than the Indy 500, this is the only race that remains on the calendar from the original Indy Racing League in 1996, except that its first race was in 1997 since the season started immediately after the 1996 Indy 500 and was technically the second IRL season because the Indy Racing League was a tremendously odd experiment that deserves its own video one day. Anyways, this race is the last of its kind. High-banked mile-and-a-half ovals used to make up the meat of the IndyCar schedule, but several factors have whittled this series down to just one. First, the 2008 merger with Champ Car, formerly CART, the series they broke away from in the first place. This brought with it the Long Beach Grand Prix, American Open Wheel Racing's premier street race, as well as the Indy Toronto. The merger began to tip the scales back toward road courses, ending the oval's first and foremost philosophy of the IRL. Second, International Speedway Corporation decided to stop letting IndyCar race on their tracks after 2010. That effectively froze the series out from half the mile-and-a-half tracks in the country. The 2016 Firestone 600 was the fourth IndyCar race in 3 weeks, as it was immediately preceded by the Detroit doubleheader and the 100th Indianapolis 500. After tonight, they'll finally get a week off before heading north to Road America. I'm willing to bet that a lot of the crews can't wait for tonight to be over, so they can finally take a breather after a grueling month of May followed up by 2 more race weekends.
Waiting for the green flag, this long weather delay.
Of course the race is delayed, why wouldn't it be? It stopped raining some time ago, but water trapped in the pavement is continually leaking out onto the racing surface. These are known as weepers, and they're the primary reason Texas will be repaved next year. The jet dryers keep drying, but the weepers keep weeping, and the race is pushed back to the next day. A sleepy, overcast Sunday afternoon greets the drivers as they strap into... Oh yeah, the drivers! Who's actually in this race? The field is 22 cars strong, which might seem low if you've only been watching IndyCar for a couple of years, but this was the norm from the introduction of the DW12 until just a few years ago. Don't let the low car count fool you though. When I say this field is 22 cars strong, I mean strong. 6 drivers in this field have won the Indianapolis 500, and another 4 will go on to win it within 9 years. Beyond these 10 are drivers with several wins in the series, and even a 4-time Champ Car champion in Sebastian Bourdais. This covers most of the top 18, with 5 more drivers towards the back of the field that combine for 0 series wins to this day. So that's the starting grid, chock full of winners and champions with a few hangers-on at the back. Of particular note this afternoon is who's on pole. Carlos Munoz. 2 weeks ago at the Indy 500, Carlos came within a stone's throw of winning on pit strategy. It's the second time he's finished runner-up at the Speedway, and it's his 3rd top 5. Having come up around the same time as guys like Joseph Newgarden and Alexander Rossi, you'd think he'd still be racing today, but he just doesn't have the funds. He's in the last year of his contract with Andretti Autosport, and he'll be replaced by Takuma Sato for 2017. Perhaps his second career win could be enough to secure a quality ride for next season. For now, Carlos Munoz leads the field of 22 to the green flag, and the Firestone 600 is underway.
Green, 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 and already cars moving up. Castro Neves inside of Dixon as they head into 2. Munoz leads the field. Dixon slides a little bit high, and Joseph Newgarden comes with him in the bright green 21 Fuzzy's entry.
And look at Marco Andretti. He's 3 wide in that yellow Snapple car, looking high, but he's got traffic in front of him, nowhere to go, because I think that's Will Power that's pushed up high, way high.
You can already see why the fans look forward to this race every year. It's basically the Talladega of the IndyCar Series. Munoz holds the early lead, but he's being hounded by Helio Castro Neves, who won here 4 times in the IRL days. Soon, the field spreads out as tires begin to wear, and Munoz breathes a little easier. Meanwhile, Alexander Rossi nearly loses it in turn 4.
The amount of steering
Whoa! Well, I was going to say, it looks like it's got a lot of push in it.
That's a push, snap, oversteer, and that is the worst thing that you want. I think this guy just really doesn't know. He's used to driving F1 cars and road course cars. Wow.
Now he's on the weight check.
By the 37th lap, the first pit cycle has begun as the tires become unmanageable. Munoz pulls in and relinquishes the lead. The driver he hands it off to is in the midst of his 5th IndyCar season with just 2 wins under his belt. He's knocking on the door of superstardom, but for now, he's sitting in 4th in the points, which is a tremendous achievement for a team like Ed Carpenter Racing. Of course, I'm talking about Joseph Newgarden. Joseph leads 2 laps before pulling onto pit road himself. It's important to note that not everyone is pitted yet. At this moment, there's still 6 cars on the track on old tires. One of them is Will Power, who's having an inexplicably miserable day running last on pace. The rest are the top 5. James Hinchcliffe, Ed Carpenter, Gabby Chavez, Mikhail Aloshin, and Connor Daly. Connor Daly, who's about to be caught by Joseph Newgarden. Connor Daly, who's about to drive through turn 4, which we know is a struggle on old tires. Connor Daly, who's about to lose it.
And a crash on the track.
Huge crash on the front straightaway. Looks like Connor Daly and I believe Joseph Newgarden.
And the front spins around, and Connor's car pushing it right into the wall, into the safer barrier. It's a good thing that was safer barrier and not concrete.
Sound of it.
Joseph Newgarden will be shortly diagnosed with a broken clavicle and a fractured wrist. For someone who seemed like he was about to make a huge jump forward in his career, this is absolutely devastating. There's no exact timeline for his injury, but this is surely going to hinder his performance for a while. As Joseph gives a thumbs up to the crowd as he's stretchered off, everyone realizes that it's going to be a while before we can go racing again. The roll hoop on the top of the 21 car has pierced the safer barrier on the front stretch, and it'll have to be repaired before the race can resume. But the red flag is never thrown, and the laps keep ticking and ticking and ticking away. James Hinchcliffe leads since he didn't pit before the crash, and hold on. What the fuck? Okay, according to Cleveland.com, which is the only source I could find that listed the broadcast schedule before this race after it was postponed to Sunday, this is supposed to be NBCSN, and the Grand Prix should be on NBC. Even in a pre-Drive to Survive world, there's no way a Grand Prix, a North American Grand Prix no less, got bumped for an IndyCar race. Unless this is CNBC, or something like that, which it would have to be since ABC has exclusive network rights to IndyCar in 2016, and the Grand Prix got bumped off NBC for something else. But what? I don't see anything bumping the Canadian Grand Prix off NBC, unless there was some huge news story on June 12th, 2016. I think we should move on now. So there's still no red flag, and we've been under caution for about 20 laps.
They also, Kyle Moore told him rain is about 25 minutes out.
Oh dear. It looks like we're close to going green though. The lap down cars are getting the wave around, and then the field will hit pit road before going green. At least they were about to, before Jack Hawksworth ripped his air gun out of the pit wall and it came loose in turn 2. Another round of cleanup, and we're approaching 30 laps under yellow. Just a moment before that milestone is passed, the rain arrives and the red flag comes out. Based on how much rainfall we've seen in just a few minutes, we're not going to get back racing today. It's looking like the rain will subside tomorrow, but we're in a bit of a bind because a bunch of drivers have to leave. 3 of the 22 drivers in this race, as well as one of the color commentators, are entered into next weekend's 24 Hours of Le Mans, the most famous auto race on Earth. As demonstrated by Townsend Bell having to leave for the airport in the middle of rain delay coverage, they need to be there pretty soon. Practice and qualifying at Le Mans will take up the better part of the week. This means the race isn't going to resume anytime soon. The week after that is the Kohler Grand Prix at Road America, which will proceed as scheduled. This race is going to get delayed by at least 2 more weeks, so there isn't much of a point in trying to squeeze it in ASAP. The broadcast cuts off, and Sunday is a washout. Drivers depart for Le Mans, and then for Wisconsin. But before they bid Texas farewell for now, the track and IndyCar announce that the race will resume on August 27th. The Firestone 600 will finish 76 days after it began. In the meantime, the IndyCar field heads to Road America, where Will Power takes the win, and the short oval in Iowa, where the checkered flag goes to Joseph Newgarden? Yup. In a complete shock, Joseph Newgarden wins his third race before his shoulder injury has even fully healed. After this, the series heads to Toronto, then Mid-Ohio, then takes a few weeks off for the summer, and then returns in Pocono. Thanks to more rain, the ABC Supply 500 takes place on August 22nd, just 5 days before the second leg of the Texas race. The Firestone 600 began at the end of a stretch of 4 races in 15 days, and it'll finish in the middle of a stretch of 3 races in 14 days. James Hinchcliffe has lucked out like crazy here. He started the race in 10th, but hadn't pitted when Newgarden crashed, so he took the lead, and since it's essentially a fresh start tonight, he's been gifted pole position. Starting back in 12th is Graham Rahal, who didn't make much noise in June, but is feeling very good tonight.
My car's a f***ing rocket ship. It just doesn't pull fifth gear, but my balance is so good, man. I can f***ing crush these guys. Copy, crush them.
Hinchcliffe leads the field to the green flag, and Ryan Hunter-Reay quickly dispatches of Takuma Sato, who's starting a lap down just behind Hinchcliffe. He passes Hinchcliffe in turn 3 and leads the next 10 laps. He never breaks away from Hinchcliffe and has to fend him off for his entire stint at the front. On the 85th lap, Hinchcliffe finally retakes the lead of the line and finally clears him 2 laps later. Elio Castro-Neves pulls in behind Hinchcliffe and makes it side by side for second, and Graham Rahal takes 4th. I guess he really does have a rocket ship tonight. Hunter-Reay fades as his car gets loose and Castro-Neves slowly closes in on Hinchcliffe. During the first green flag pit cycle, Hinchcliffe stays out way longer than anyone else, and his tires are so worn that Castro-Neves flies by him. That doesn't mean he's going to give up, though.
I'll tell you what,
Look at that.
he's got a fast car because he was three seconds behind Castro-Neves when they came out of the pits as they lapped Marco. He chased him down and now is back in the lead, so Hinchcliffe has a really quick car.
The race is turning into the James Hinchcliffe show, as he pits late again but has enough of a gap between himself and second place that he could keep the lead. By lap 189, he's pulled an 8.5 second lead on Ed Carpenter. As another pit cycle comes and goes, Hinchcliffe's strategy bites him again. The gap is down to 1.5 seconds, and it's closing. As the 2 leaders work their way through traffic, the gap shrinks to 1.1 seconds, before Carpenter gets his hands full thanks to Scott Dixon. Scott's trying to get back on the lead lap, and he's going full throttle in the front stretch, just inches away from Carpenter.
Scott Dixon wants that lead lap.
Yeah, the more you do this, just like I said, the more you start fooling around and racing each other, that's what happens.
Carpenter and Dixon touch. Dixon is into the wall, and there's that Castro-Neves that came by and just clipped him.
Under caution, the entire field pits, save for Hinchcliffe, Carpenter, and the lap-down cars of Chavez and Rossi. It hasn't been too long since the last pit cycle, so the top 2 are gambling on track position winning the day with just under 30 laps to go. Thankfully for them, Chavez and Rossi serve as a buffer between themselves and a hard-charging Castro-Neves. Rossi and Mikhail Aloshin catch the leaders quickly, both trying to get a lap back. As Hinchcliffe battles the lappers, Tony Kanaan and Graham Rahal go for second and third, flying by Carpenter and Castro-Neves.
Guys, Tony Kanaan has moved up to second in a big
just like
crash.
I told you. And who is that? It's Rossi? Is that
No,
Rossi?
that's Ed. That's Ed Carpenter.
Not pitting for tires under the caution was the difference, as Carpenter's right rear blows in turn 4, taking out himself and Castro-Neves. On the restart, Kanaan makes the move on Hinchcliffe, but another yellow comes out before he gets a chance to complete it. Kanaan pits under the yellow, sacrificing track position for a fresh set of Firestones. Since there's less than 15 to go, the lapped cars are moved to the back. Kanaan will restart in 4th, but Hinchcliffe is confident that he can win on the older tires.
Townsend, I just talked to Hinch's strategist and I asked him why not bring him in. He says, we think we still have the car to win. Hinch told me earlier today that his car is the best at the end of the stint. So again, they are still confident that even with these older tires, they can beat out the rest of the field, but we'll see how it goes.
Meanwhile, Rahal and his rocket ship are in 2nd, and Castro-Neves is 3rd with pieces missing from his car after the crash. Simon Pagenaud, the points leader, rounds out the top 5. The green flag flies with 8 laps to go. Everybody wants to catch Hinchcliffe as soon as possible. Castro-Neves goes low on Rahal, and Kanaan goes high. Pagenaud, from 5th place, makes one of the most daring moves I've ever seen. Somehow, they all keep it clean after going 4 wide at over 200 miles an hour. With 6 laps to go, they catch Hinchcliffe and decide to do it again.
We got Rahal back in the fight. Here comes Hinchcliffe. He's now being swallowed up.
The lane just opened up for Kanaan. 3 wide, 4 wide, and you will not get through the corner like that.
Oh boy.
Pagenaud backs out, and Castroneves falls out of contention. It's now a 4-man race for the win. They run 2x2 for a couple of laps, as Rahal tries to find his way around Kanaan and Hinchcliffe by any means necessary.
Got 3 guys.
Whoa! In the warm
Graham Rahal all over the place.
With 2 to go, Kanaan goes way low off turn 2, and Rahal takes advantage. He's alongside Kanaan at the white flag and clears him off of 2. Down the backstretch, he dives to Hinchcliffe's inside. He clears him for a fraction of a second, but Hinchcliffe, like he's done so many times tonight, gets a run off turn 4. James Hinchcliffe is looking for his first win since before the crash at Indianapolis last year that nearly killed him. It would be just the 5th win of his career and his 2nd for Sam Schmidt's team. And for Graham Rahal, this would be his 4th. Graham's trying to live up to the legacy of his legendary father Bobby and the hype garnered after he won his IndyCar debut in 2008. But there's something else going on right now for Graham. A moment that he's trying not to have to live down. See that? Graham doesn't realize how much of a run Hinchcliffe's got, and he's already got his fist in the air in celebration. If he doesn't pull this off, this moment will live on forever in blooper reels and YouTube compilations alongside guys like this Oregon runner, or that motocross rider. He wouldn't be Graham Rahal anymore, he'd be that race car driver. This race has essentially already been decided. Both drivers have the pedal to the floor, and they're not going to bump into each other. The final margin of victory is going to be 8 thousandths of a second. And in the blink of an eye, we'll know the winner of a race that began over 2 months ago.
Rahal and Hinchcliffe to the line! Graham Rahal has won at Texas Motor Speedway on the last lap pass of James Hinchcliffe.
Graham Rahal and the rocket ship came out victorious in the only IndyCar race in history to have 5 other races in between its start and finish. After this, Texas was repaved for 2017, with a flattened 1 and 2 and traction compound disaster turning it into the consensus worst track on the NASCAR calendar. But at least the repave solved the weeper problem, right? Right?
Of course it didn't. Why would it?